I love science fiction, and as many of you are aware, I am very excited about the 1.0 release of Subverse. However, I also understand that not everyone is going to share my enthusiasm. So I've put together a list of 13 other science fiction games so that this month can be out of this world for everyone. 9 of these titles completed this year, and the 4 others are deep into development. As always, all links can be found for free on my Patreon. First up, we have Future Fragments. This female protagonist platformer released earlier this year and is a fantastic fusion of story, gameplay, and so many monsters. The soundtrack is also awesome if you want to check it out on Spotify. The only real downside is that while the game technically came out earlier this year, it is still a work in progress. But the developer has already released multiple patches that have added additional cutscenes, endings, and many quality of life improvements. So we're definitely at a point where you should check it out if you've been on the fence. Future Fragments is available for PC on Steam, Patreon, and itch.io. Next up is another Finnish title that has an awesome soundtrack, City of Broken Dreamers. I reviewed the first part of this cyberpunk noir visual novel back in 2021, and the conclusion just released on Steam. If you enjoy darker themed narratives, then I highly recommend checking this one out. The visuals, animations, and story are great, even if I am torn about the endings. City of Broken Dreamers is available for PC, Mac, SteamOS, and Linux on Steam and itch.io with an Android version on their Patreon. Next up, we have a game that I covered earlier this year in a Next Fest video, X Angels. This is a roguelike car battler where you have to save the city from female superheroes who have gone bad. So you can expect to see corruption and a whole lot of gaslighting people into thinking you're the good guy. You know, the same thing we always see with superhero stories. X Angels is available for PC on Steam and their Patreon. While our next game, Eternum, is still in development, there is already a huge amount of content to experience in this world-hopping visual novel. Basically, Eternum takes place in a world with a video game interface similar to the ones in Sword Art Online and Ready Player One. I covered this last year, and I still think it has one of the best stories I've seen in a Western visual novel. I am sure that I will cover it again once it completes, but even in its current unfinished state, I highly recommend it to fans of visual novels. Eternum is available for PC, Mac, Linux, and Android on their Patreon and itch.io. Another game in development is Hounds of the Meteor. This female protagonist side-scroller has a, let's call it, a coitus on conquest mechanic that is common with Japanese games. So you can expect to see corruption and a lot of monsters as you work to defend the Galactic Federation. Sadly, this game is currently only available for PC on CN, which makes acquiring it more difficult. Thanks a lot, MasterCard. So our next game, Project Passion, is still in development, but the completed first season came out on Steam last year, and Season 2 appears to be almost done on Patreon. Where Season 1 was more comedic, Season 2 has taken on a more serious tone. With its fantastic story and quality animations, this was my favorite game last year, but I am really partial to space westerns. Now that I think about it, I am probably just partial to westerns, space or otherwise. Project Passion is available for PC, Mac, SteamOS, and Linux on Steam, and with an Android version on their Patreon and itch.io. Next up is a game that I wanted to like more. Last Hope is an open-world 3D harem builder in space. Well, I guess I should say open ship as opposed to open world, but I think you get what I mean. There are mini games to play, outfits to unlock, lots of animations, and a story that seems pretty compelling. Yet somehow I just didn't really enjoy it. But this is still a completed game that has flavors that are very popular, so I wouldn't want my personal opinion to keep me from sharing it with you all. Let me know what you think. Last Hope is available for PC on Steam and Patreon. Sticking with games that I thought I'd like but just didn't, we have Mech Academy. I mean, we have giant robots and kaiju, which I love, and I was really hoping for something like Pacific Rim. Sadly, that was not the case. Our main character comes to the future from the 1970s, and as opposed to us getting a charismatic Buck Rogers, RMC is more cantankerous than Squidward. But this is still a completed game, and the renders are decent with some animations. Mech Academy is available for PC, Mac, SteamOS, and Linux on Steam and their Patreon. Another game with a main character that wakes up in the future is Third Crisis. This completed female protagonist adventure has you searching for your lost girlfriend in a decadent dystopia. I'm pretty sure you all can imagine the flavors we're dealing with in this pixel art RPG. Third Crisis is available for PC on Steam and GOG with an Android version on Patreon and itch.io. Another dystopic RPG is Masters of Raana. This is a post-apocalyptic text adventure with fantasy and sci-fi aspects. While the primary focuses involve slaving and training, there is so much more you can do in this grim dark world. Like, I spent so much time fishing, probably because I was so terrible at the turn-based combat. I really enjoyed the world building and the maps, even if I still managed to get lost many times. I may just not be cut out for all of this reading. Masters of Raana is available for PC, Mac, and Linux on their Patreon and itch.io. Next up is Colony City 27 Lambda. This is a female protagonist card battler with clothing destruction, which makes it one of those games that I can't really show much of. So I'll take this time to thank all of my patrons. You all are awesome. This is actually a pretty fun completed game with a corruption focus and multiple endings. Colony City 27 Lambda is available for PC on Steam. Given how many games on this list have a corruption focus, I wonder if that's just part of the sci-fi experience. I mean, our next game, Space Journey X, gives the MC a ship and the first thing they try to do is build a fully corrupted all-female crew. From the same developer as The Princess and the Tower, this completed title is a more lighthearted training-focused space adventure. Space Journey X is available for PC, Mac, and Linux on their Patreon and itch.io. And finally, we have Wings of Seduction Bust 'Em Out. This shoot 'em up has clothing destruction and music that changes with the gameplay. I really like the soundtrack, even if I was completely terrible at the game. Wings of Seduction Bust 'Em Out is available for PC on Steam and itch.io. There you have it. I'm going to be playing Subverse this weekend, but I wanted to make sure that I gave you all other options if you're not planning on joining me on the Mary Celeste. Until next time, no shaming, just gaming.